Congratulations to rockers and just fans of interesting. I have a video on my channel about the history of rock music. I have reviews of rock music in computer games here. And now for the first time a review of a book about music. Today we will have about this book that I hold in my hands. Stephen Witt. Full name: How Music Got Free, The End of an Industry, The Turn of the Century, and The Patient Zero of Piracy. In my hands, the Ukrainian edition. Right from the start, I will not retell the entire book here. I'll just take a few episodes from it and you can get acquainted with everything interesting by reading it yourself. So, it's time to put on a special uniform and raise the black flag. Yarr! Today's episode is about people who sneezed at licensing agreements, violated copyright, and changed the world of music forever. Why was this done? Is it crime and theft, or an attempt to punish the recording giants that parasitized music lovers and fans? About this and much more today on Rock Other Worlds. I and the author of the book have a difference in age of about 10 years. However, yes, I'm like him, from the generation of pirates. Only I am from Ukraine, and here in piracy there were differences. I downloaded the music of my favorite artists from torrents and pirate sites more than once. And it seems to me that some of you are too. I started downloading in the middle 2000s, and the reason was the banal lack of finding material elsewhere. For example, you will learn from some source that your favorite band, in my case Black Sabbath, has released, for example, 19 albums. And there are only 2 albums on CD at the local stores. Or even worse, some very bad self-made compilations in which 2-3 of the 15 songs are remixes of one song, and a bunch of lousy quality concert recordings that you don't need. There are no iTunes even in the project, and even if there were, you would have to open a bank card to pay for them, and you're still in school. It is not possible to order something from abroad. In short, in the late 90s and early 0 years, to download, pirate or buy on pirate CDRs was really the only option. Pirated counterfeits with music sometimes looked good, but they were not licenses. It looked like this. This is a pirate CD I bought on the market when I was a kid. Were there licenses at all? Were. Rare. Worth tens of hryvnias, which is quite a lot for a kid. And often not the albums you were looking for. Therefore, supporting pirates was sometimes the only option. Now the book. For me, How Music Got Free, it's a 100% historical book with real people, but in some places it reminded me of a detective story. I want to note that the work on it took several years, and you can feel the incredible amount of documents and other data that the author has processed. The book is built around three main stories that develop in parallel year after year. Stories sometimes have small branches. Three names that you will meet most often: Del Glover, Doug Morris, and Karl-Heinz Brandenburg. In my review, I will pay more attention to the side of piracy technologies. It all started in Germany, and started very innocently. Here was born the god and devil of this revolution, MP3. In general, something like MP3 was predicted in theory decades before its appearance. As for the basis of the idea, anatomists who studied human hearing discovered at the turn of the 70s and 80s that our ear is able to perceive certain ranges, which means that it is possible to create digital sound by reducing the size of the sound file through the removal of all unnecessary. Remove from the sound everything that the human ear anyway cannot catch, and shazam! The recorded sound will now take up much less space. Now the only question is how to encode the audio recording by compressing it into one file and reduce the file somewhere 12 times. In 1982, the world was introduced to a CD that came to replace vinyl records. The commercial promised perfect sound forever. Although one of the computer engineers, Dieter Zeitzer, saw the discs as just another repository of unnecessary information, much of which is ignored by the human ear. In the same year, 1982, he predicted a technology where audio files should be sent directly to the personal computer of the person who purchased the music through digital channels. And you don't need send something in packages or boxes by mail or buy in a store anymore. 1982 is 25 years before such a system really started to work everywhere. It was unrealistic to imagine such technology then. Now it was time to create a new format that would take up so little space that it could be transmitted over the telephone internet and fit on a hard drive. The amount of PC memory at that time was very small. He entrusted this task to Karl-Heinz Brandenburg, a young electrical engineer and mathematician. Already in 1986, he created the first program capable of dividing sound into fractions of a second and turn that pieces into separate bits, discarding all unnecessary. Similarly, the prism divides visible light into colors. Senior researchers saw a perspective in Brandenburg's research and transferred him to the Fraunhofer Institute for Integrated Circuits. Such a huge laboratory for research of sound there began to form a team of young and ambitious programmers, engineers. I do not want to tire you with the technical details of these developments, which lasted almost 10 years. I'll just say that MP3 broke free because a loss to competitors. Sounds unusual. The following happened. In 1995, Fraunhofer team was able to bring its format to an acceptable quality and size. The little thing remained. To obtain from the MPEG Standardization Committee, a permit for use for consumers. In 1995, Philips was able to win for its format. It was called MP2. The quality of MP2 files was lower than the quality of MP3 files. It was the end. Or not. Brandenburg knew their format was better. Any non-professional person could distinguish MP3 from MP2 because the former was better, but all official ways were closed. The MPEG committee did not give any space for format: discs, radio, movies, television. So the thought came out to return to the original idea, to make the format popular for individual computer users. The team created a program called L3ENC. It was fit on a regular floppy disk, like this. And now anyone can use it to create their own MP3 files and play them on own PC. It was possible to take 12 discs and compress them with the program to the one, without losing quality. To gain some space under the sun for their format, the developers have begun to distribute this program for free to anyone. Diskettes were distributed free of charge to friends, acquaintances, and even competitors at various conferences. A year earlier, one of the team's engineers decided to connect an MP3 reader, power supply, flash memory, and headphones. So in 1994, the first prototype of an MP3 player appeared. In the same 1995, two more things happened. Windows 95 is released and Fraunhofer team make a player for this system called WinPlay 3 and launch a site where you can download and use it for free. Now everyone could listen and create MP3s on their computer. Brandenburg believed that it would only make the music industry better, but they did not yet know which gene was released from the bottle. And the scene came. Scene, or war scene, is a worldwide underground organized network of pirate groups specializing in obtaining and illegally releasing digital media for free before their official sale date. Some people suddenly came up with the idea of how to use more interesting music formats and free programs created by the Germans. The origins of the scene were back in the 70s. Initially, pirated files are available only to participants in the scene, and then flow from it, becoming available to anyone. The scene has no central leadership, location, or agreements. There are only separate rules for each of the communities operating within it. Rules on quality, format, behavior, etc. The only goal is to leak a stolen movie, game, album into internet faster than competing groups. As for music, in almost all cases, these pirates did not receive anything from the leaking music into the network, I mean money. Only popularity and ranking online among a small circle of those in the topic. The advent of MP3 has allowed the scene and the internet in general to turn the music industry upside down. Now the albums of top artists appeared on the internet a few weeks earlier than in stores, because anyone technically not very savvy could rip a disc with a record that came to his hands, convert it to MP3 and upload these files to the World Wide Web. Music leaked out from employees of factories that stamping CDs, leaks from the staff of recording studios, employees of music labels, and sometimes even the musicians themselves. So, of course, it was illegal and the music industry suffered huge losses due to the activities of pirates. They have always been hunted by law enforcement agencies in different countries and sometimes managed to catch someone, but often all that was left is to count losses. According to the statistics of 2012, every day only The Scene leaked out about 1,000 releases. The story of the person, the author, calls the zero patient of music internet piracy, is exactly connected with The Scene, a man who for 8 years was involved in the loudest leaks of music to the network. This part of the story is about Del Glover, Mysterious Kali. This is a pseudonym and one of the Scene groups which competed with other groups. Its name is RNS or Rabbit Neurosis, and in 11 years of its existence, this group has leaked more than 20,000 albums. RNS had a whole network. They had their people in different parts of the music industry. But this part of the story is closely connected to the disc factory in Kings Mountain, North Carolina. The damage done to the music industry by this group was enormous. And for law enforcement, the group was the most coveted target. More and much more in the book itself. From the second half of the 90s, many sites began to appear, not related to The Scene, but with a similar essence, providing free access to music. One site created by a young programmer from the USA, 19-year-old Sean Fanning, especially stood out: Napster. He proposed a new approach. You no longer need a data server. Instead, network members share files with each other. The technology is called peer-to-peer. This allowed to increase the download speed. There were a lot of people in the Napster, and of course the lion's share of files violated someone's copyright. Napster's family quickly grew to millions, but in 2000, a group of record companies sued Napster. They were not the only ones against this site. I will add from myself about Napster what was not in the book. That year, Mission Impossible 2 with Tom Cruise was released on the big screen, and the soundtrack was the hit I Disappear from Metallica. The scandal began with the appearance of this song on Napster a few days before its official release. The band Metallica staged a grand scandal, and this story is recalled to them even after so many years. On the one hand, musicians can be pitied. They invested time and effort in creation. Metallica fans raised a wave of outrage because, as fans from the 80s recall, the band distributed their first recordings through underground type trading network, thus gaining an army of band supporters around the world. I quote one fan about tape trading. In modern parlance, we would call it illegal and unrestricted copying and distribution of their songs. Reviews of that scandal can still be found on the internet in the form of caricatures and even animations.
Napster bad!
But in 2001, Napster lost. It was closed, and the technology peer-to-peer went underground. But not everything was so simple, because at the same time there was another lawsuit against the company Diamond. Diamond, a manufacturer of equipment for playing MP3 files. The point was whether or not MP3 players will remain on store shelves or not. Just imagine. But that lawsuit was won by the manufacturers of MP3 players, so soon it will be very difficult for CDs. 2001. One young programmer from New York solves one of the biggest download problems: time. It used to be like this. You want to download a music file, but have to wait because the download speed is low due to the fact that right now, in addition to you, a lot of people is downloading this file. And how about doing so? Instead of downloading an entire file from one user, you could download 1/100th of a file from 100 users. The genius of this idea is that the more people try to download a file at the same time, the faster it downloads. And after you download it, you start giving a piece of this file to millions of people around the globe. Yes, it's about BitTorrent technology, invented by 25-year-old Bram Cohen. Now, the pirated site did not hold music files. It was just a place to link to a file, called tracker, which in turn was scattered on millions of users' computers around the globe. One of the most effective trackers was Oink, or Oink's Pink Palace, from the United Kingdom. The site has been operating since 2004 and has become not a gathering place for lickers, but a full-fledged community of music fans, only high-quality sound. Here you could find such releases and versions of songs and albums that were considered lost. Even some of the musicians whose pirated songs were on this site were happy to use it and came to its defense when clouds gathered over it a few years later. This tracker was closed in 2007, although Alan Ellis was acquitted in court without finding any evil intent or enrichment in his activities. In the memory of fans, the Oink's Pink Palace has remained the best archive of high-quality music that ever existed. Scene was an underground organization of leakers. Oink was a community of music fans whose goal was not to break the law, but only to create a library. And there were some guys who knew that they were doing against the law and had some swagger from it. They acted openly, brazenly and proudly, without hiding from the public and rights holders. The Pirate Bay, torrent site that started operating in Sweden in 2003. These guys did not hide that they are pirates. It is a conscious choice. They responded to letters from rights holders with threats of lawsuits or demands to remove files with bold ridicule. Of course, the record industry has not come to terms with such impudence. In 2006, there was the first police raid on the Bay. The servers were shut down, but the site still worked. The pirates prepared for this and backup servers were ready, so the site continued to work. The law has repeatedly tried to press them, but each time the site found a way to work further. Yes, it is very difficult to fight ideological people. In some countries, access to Pirate Bay has been blocked by providers, but Bay came to the rescue again. Now you can download a free browser called Pirate Browser, and no blocking will stop you. And now the Pirate Bay works. It is available in 35 languages. And yet, attacks on it led to an unusual thing. In Sweden, during the raids on the bay, the people began to protest, defending the pirates. There were protests in defense. In 2006, the Pirate Party was founded in Sweden to advocate for the repeal of copyright laws. In 2009, the Pirate Party from Sweden even managed to break into the European Parliament. I will add that not only in Sweden, but also in a number of countries around the world, pirate parties have appeared. This is, for example, Germany or Iceland. I summarize. Piracy, as a modern phenomenon, has not appeared out of nowhere. You can blame the internet, but even before its appearance, there were cases of copyright infringement. Well, maybe not in such quantities. But also, the music industry, at the time this story took place, was not white and fluffy. For example, the Piola scandal is when some music labels bribed radio DJs to play certain songs more often to hit top of the charts. The Pirate Revolution almost killed such a thing as an album. The internet gave you the opportunity to listen to only one hit. Before that, you had to buy an entire album on physical media. There were often 2-3 hits on the album, and everything else was often just a filler, for which you had to pay. Now it's in the past. You can only take 1-2 hits if you want. Surprisingly, this revolution also contributed to the renaissance of festivals and concerts. Piracy has made music accessible to everyone. And so, the number of people who listen to it, on the way to work, on the run, with friends, has increased tremendously compared to previous times. A person spends about the same amount on entertainment. And if a person does not buy an album, he can spend this money on a ticket to a concert, festival. Conclusion. If you are a fan of rock music or music, then the book How Music Got Free you must read for sure. Even if you are not a fan of the rock, it is basically just interesting for overall development. Because I told from it a couple of interesting moments. But there are many more, believe me. Including incredible stories of people who were very connected to the scene and more. For example, here you will find the story of Doug Morris, one of the most successful leaders in the recording industry. No, he was not a pirate at all. He led new stars, and it is to him that we owe the appearance of Vivo. His part of the story is the story from the other side of the barricades, on the part of the music labels and the impact of the digital revolution on them and they are musicians. It's about finding new talent. You can personally treat piracy as you like. There is no pure white or black in this story. Bye, rockers!